This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting, brought to you by Spreaker from iHeart. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Tuesday, November 12th. Our first story, iHeartMedia Incorporated reports results for 2024 third quarter. Noteworthy changes in iHeart's Q3 2024 financial report from last week include podcast revenue increasing 11% year over year to $114 million, accounting for 11.3% of the company's earnings in total. In addition to the quarterly report, an anonymous source told The Hollywood Reporter that iHeartMedia was in the process of laying off just under 5% of their 10,000 employee workforce, meaning somewhere under 500 positions will be affected. With that in mind, we'd like to remind everyone in the business of podcasting, whether they're seeking new employees or looking for a new position themselves, that the Sounds Profitable job board is entirely free and always accepting new job submissions. Next up, Trump's win cemented it. New media is leaving the old guard behind. This one's from the Wall Street Journal. A look at podcast appearances during the run-up to the November 5th election and how this year's presidential campaign strategy stressed new media specifically more than prior election seasons. While TV news remains a sizable draw for older voters, younger generations have moved online, with the top three cable channels down 32% in collective viewership compared to 2020. Wall Street Journal interviews with various kinds of voters shows a consistent trend of perceiving podcasts as being more authentic, legitimate places to hear politicians speak. Even if said podcasts have the same power dynamics that ensure similar softball questions and forgiving editing found in mainstream television, podcasts come with an air of calm vibes and friendly conversational tone. Next up, Podpage adds a listener survey tool. This is from James Cridlin at Pod News. Podpage has published a new tutorial video showcasing a new feature in their Pro plan, listener surveys. Inspired by Tom Webster's discussion of the utility of audience surveys, including in his new book, The Audience is Listening, Podpage founder Brendan Mulligan built a new tool in the service that allows users to run listener surveys directly on the podcast's website, with submissions tracked on the back end with a data visualization dashboard. Next up, 1 in 3 Americans report having changed their opinion on a topic or brand discussed in a podcast, new survey finds. A new report from Quill, the 2024 Podcast Marketing Trust Index, finds 33% of Americans surveyed say they have changed their opinions on a topic or brand due to a discussion on a podcast. 35% of that group was male, and 50% are aged 18 to 34. The survey was conducted by Ipsos, surveying 1,000 U.S. residents aged 18 and up. Other key findings include 56% of respondents saying host endorsements influence their trust in a product or service to some degree, and 42% saying they trust or somewhat trust information presented in podcasts more than other traditional forms of media. Finally, Rajar Q3 2024. Analyst Adam Bowie returns with a quarterly look at Rajar data covering audio's growth in the UK. 88% of the UK population listens to radio at least 15 minutes each week, according to the survey, a year-over-year growth of 2.8%. Though, Bowie stresses that back in Q2 of this year, Rajar reweighted their population data to account for new UK census data, so they're not necessarily one-to-one. Podcast listening in the UK is now up to 21.8% of listen time as measured by Rajar, representing 12.6 million people a week. As for the rest of the news, music streamer Deezer has chosen Dax as its exclusive US ad sales partner. A new study from Westwood One and Matchbox finds that podcast and radio listeners are a key potential market for auto parts advertisers. True crime podcaster Jonathan Mr. Ballin Allen has announced Mr. Ballin Presents Strange, Dark, and Mysterious is the top debut novel in the graphic novel and manga section of the New York Times bestseller list. Award show insider Bruce Valanche is sharing Oscar secrets in his new podcast, Oscars, What Were They Thinking? That's the most acting you'll get out of me today. And finally, Viore is allowing some of its employees and investors to sell their shares in a deal valued at about $5.5 billion. Be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or at soundsprofitable.com, where you can also subscribe to the newsletter version. The Download is written and produced by Newton Shadalkati, Brian Barletta, Tom Webster, and myself. This episode is hosted on Spreaker. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis. Download us again tomorrow.